This is the new version of the original Are You Wasting Your Time video. I've removed the noise that many commented was very distracting, and I want to also implement that I have evolved immensely in the years since this was originally posted in 2019. So I do not consider all of these to be deal breakers. Some of these are red flags, like Mercury Square Sun and Mars conjunct Pluto. The rest do remain as deal breakers, so please do keep that in mind as you are watching and reviewing this, and please like and subscribe to see my newest videos. I will be breaking down the actual top deal breakers very soon and very clearly. Hi there, I'm Madeline Marie, and I'm here today to bring you the answer to your question, am I wasting my time? If you want to go ahead and look up your compatibility so you can see if you have any of these aspects that I'm going to warn you about today, which great, I'm doing my first Synastry video, negative, but it'll save you a lot of time. You go look at the link below, it's for Cafe Astrology, and you can put in the birthdays. There's a way to do it with the birth times, but we'll get into that another time with the moon aspects. And also check out www.rotation411.com. That's my website. You can go on there anytime to chat with me, and I can help you, give you a tarot reading, answer any of your questions. Also, I have different services on there, so if you haven't done your birth chart yet, I highly recommend it. It'll tell you everything you ever wanted to know about your life. And I'm doing the big 144 series, so you could check out that playlist and subscribe to my channel, Rotation 411. The 144 is all of the suns and moon personalities, and I added a bonus, 12 to the third power, and I'm doing all of the rising signs with all the suns and moons. So we're covering the 1,728 dominant personalities in astrology. So it's quite a handful. When I look at other YouTube videos, I see people in the comments say, can you do the 144? So I'm doing that, and then I'm going to go and do 144 times whatever it is to do all the suns and moons in compatibility. So subscribe if you'd like to see all of that series. But for now, today, I came to save a lot of people a lot of time and answer the question, am I wasting my time? So to get started, I want to tell you a little secret. When you look at that chart, you can run, your current relationship, your past relationships, whatever relationship you idolize or don't want to be like. I recommend you run those because you can see a lot if you have the time. But if you don't have the time, here's a shortcut. When you look at those compatibility charts, they're like the shorter ones, and I find that even if there are some like beautiful Venus aspects in there, these are more like friendships or collaborative relationships, maybe even good working relationships. But shorter relationships, to me, they say that either these people are not very invested, their connection isn't that deep, or it's just not going to last very long. And when I see those shorter ones, it could be a great friendship that lasts a long time, but it's not really going to be a romance. When it's a little bit longer, it could be where there's potential that's just never realized, but you're both sort of okay and understand. And when you get a little longer than that, I'm going to say like 20, 25 aspects, that's when you have a real relationship. And longer than that, it can almost get muddy. If there's like a really long list of aspects between the two people, it can almost be too complicated for it to ever work. So there's a certain length. So automatically when I see a chart and I see that there are only this many aspects, I'm like, okay, well, this might not be the one for them. So it's just one of the 4 things I wanted to share about knowing whether you're wasting your time or not. If you go on there and there's only 5 aspects, you're probably not even going to be stuck on this person that long, to be truthfully honest. Now, into the next thing, and most astrologers know this and they'll mention it, and it's Saturn aspects. So I did have a person that I was totally crazy about for my first few years when I had moved to Los Angeles. I love it here. It's, City of Angels, spiritual center. And I think he was pretty crazy about me too, because his Venus was affected by me. And that's one thing, is when your Venuses are being touched by each other's other planets or Venuses, that makes for love. The moon is even more so like a relationship that's going to last and endure with love and someone you could live with. But Venus is like, this person feels love for you. There's some that I've looked at where it's like, oh, you know, was I really in love or was I just trying to make it work? Well, if there's not a lot of Venus there, you're probably just, it's not that there's not love, but you're not going to feel like as much of that. There could be other romantic aspects, but you might always wonder, am I really in love? Maybe, maybe not. That one I'm not as sure about. But I can tell you that with no Saturn aspects, like none, zero, there's no way this relationship will ever be grounded. And since Saturn is the father of time, and a lot of astrologists, especially on YouTube, say that this is a binding sort of thing, even if it's negative, it actually can be more binding if you have negative or challenging Saturn aspects, because it means that the two people are willing to put the work in, the elbow grease. So also Saturn is the father of time, so this shows that this relationship will endure through time. And because Saturn takes a long time and he's slow, this shows that this is someone that you're going to feel like you need to spend the time with to see Saturn, basically. But there are other aspects, and that's the one I'm getting to, where I'm going to let you know if you're wasting your time, that you'll never even see Saturn because you won't get there, because there's this other interrupting force that came into play, which reminds me of one that I see quite often. And it's not that it can't work, but it could break up a relationship before it starts. It's like Sun Square Mercury. And what happens here is the Mercury person just feels the need. I don't know if you've ever known anyone. I know a couple. I grew up with the guy, and not to call anyone out, but it was always interesting to me because he was with this girl and totally with her, but when she wasn't around, he just talked so much crap about her, like, oh, my girlfriend's not this or that. And I'm thinking, well, why are you so bonded to her? And I don't know if they have this aspect. I should check. But to me, that is like the archetype of this aspect, the Mercury Square Sun, because the Mercury person is just always going to feel the need to criticize the sun or to sort of be doubtful about the relationship. I had a client the other day, it's like, oh, we have a bunch of negative aspects, and I open up the chart and the only thing wrong is the Mercury Square Sun, since she's the Mercury. So I feel like this is just going to be where that Mercury person's always going to be critical of the sun, critical or doubtful of the relationship, even though they're not really doubtful. They're just going to have this urge. Mercury likes to talk on like a mundane chitter-chatter level, just to kind of nitpick at the relationship. It's interesting how this plays out, and I try not to indulge too much in my clients' like information, but I just show you the trends that I see. And so with that Mercury Square Sun, it could also stop a relationship from starting if there's nothing strong enough, or if it has this next one, which to me is a deal-breaking aspect, and it's what I've stumbled upon recently. And I actually got a bad review from one of my clients because I told her about it, because she fit this the timeline. Basically, her story fit the timeline, and the timeline is this: have you ever been with someone and you have all this hope and potential for the relationship, but you hit it off and like you make plans and everything's going well, and if you look at the chart, there's mostly good aspects or even negative ones that tend to be binding, like a Venus Saturn negative aspect is seen in a lot of long-term couples, because you're touching the heart and Saturn has the duty, and you know that could even be there. Other great aspects that are very binding, but for some reason the relationship lasts 2 months and it's gone. Well, what I discovered in my research is there is this little tricky aspect. You add Mercury Square Sun and it's never going to have a chance. And this aspect is Mars square Jupiter. And when I do my research on astrology, I read books. I've been reading books on it for 18 years. I've had this ability to know people's signs just from meeting them for about that long, and that's kind of what keeps me hooked into it and learning more all the time, because it's just like this deep well. But when you look at to get to the point of Mars square Jupiter, is when I was looking for information on this, when I found this trend, there isn't very much. There are no YouTube videos on it. There are no articles really online about it. And the only one that I had is that website that I told you. You can do 0800 as well. It's a great one, 0800 horoscope. But Cafe, I feel like 0800 can be a little more on the negative side with the negative aspects, which I don't like because they're not negative, right? They're challenging. But the Cafe Astrology does have a blurb about it, and that's the best way that I can go about starting to describe it to you, since I haven't been able to research it as far as books, but I have seen it in practicality, in practice with people and experience and observation. So what the Cafe Astrology little description says when you pull this up in a chart, it says that these two will have a hard time because when one is one place, when they're together, one will be thinking about being somewhere else, and the other will do the same. And so I had to think about this. Why are these two bouncing off each other? They'll come together. It's a great romance. There's great other aspects, even ones that can be very binding or long term. But these people, they just have this like big romance, and then how badly it blows apart could be with the other aspects, but then it just falls apart, and they might wonder for years why this didn't work out between the two of them. They might even reunite. I've seen this happen. They'll reunite a few years later, but it'll be like shorter each time. It'll be like a week, because they'll just realize that they want to be in different places. And so the way that I see that this is that Jupiter is sort of like the aristocratic, traveling, highly educated, somewhat spiritual, jolly, wealthy benefactor, and he's just like, oh, I'm going to travel to Australia, and Mars is over here like, no, we've got to go to war, we're on a mission, we got to go where the action is, there's things going on in North Korea, let's go over there, or something, and Jupiter's like, oh, but I kind of wanted to read this book. I kind of wanted to take another college course. And Mars is like, why are you going to go to college? Let's go to war, and they're just on these two different wavelengths. And not that these people, that those are their exact motives, but when you put this Mars square Jupiter, well, you already got Mars and Jupiter having very different intentions. So they are allies. When they are allies, like in Vedic astrology, they do empower each other. But I believe they do. I don't think that Mars, I guess, maybe don't quote me on that. Mars might actually weaken Jupiter. No, I think they're allies, but we'll get back to that Vedic astrology. I'm still learning. So when you bring these two together, though, in a square, now I don't know about the opposition and conjunction so much because I've only seen this with a square. And my client that gave me the bad review for this, she had this exact story. I was dating this guy for 2 months, and it just ended in this big fight. And I go, well, I would hope that it wouldn't just end over that. And she didn't like that very much. But I did warn her about this aspect because I had just discovered it. And I'm pretty sure that this is true. So if you're wondering if you're wasting your time, or you just got out of a 2-month romance, or you're still pining over a 2-month romance, wondering why it didn't work out, go below to the Cafe Astrology. I don't get any benefits from you clicking that, and see if you don't have that. And if you don't have that, then it's worth maybe thinking about working things out with the relationship, or thinking about what went wrong. But if you have this Mars square Jupiter, I'm telling you, it's just never going to work. And I think there's different levels of being stuck on the relationship, and it has to do with the other aspects. Some people, it might have been an easy falling out where you always think of it kindly and wonder why it didn't work, and others that might be there might be more bitterness, and you're like, well, everything was there. We were meant to be together, and then they just disappeared. Well, if you had stuck it out a little longer, or they had, and you were in it, you would feel that pull, because even if you weren't the one to break it off, or you weren't, and you're the one still wanting the relationship, if they did finally settle down, which goes back to that human nature thing that I don't like, oh, the one wants the other when the other doesn't want. Well, I don't really think that that's always described by this, but this could be an example of that, where this person that you thought that you wanted, once you had settled down, your mind would be going, oh, well, I want to do this, or I want to live in this city, and it just would never have worked with this person. It's like it wasn't meant to be, even if all the other aspects were meant to be. It's amazing. And another way that I've seen this play out too is it didn't really go on for 2 months, even though that's what I'm finding as archetype. And like when that client had told me it's been 2 months and now it kind of blew apart, and I saw that there, I said, well, this was just a romance. This wasn't a long-term thing. And they didn't even really have that creative other aspects, I don't think. But when I see this and it could still almost be too, like say it was someone you went to school with and you always liked each other, and then in adulthood you kind of always checked on each other, but it was like when you finally would have chances to reunite, it just wasn't happening. Like your lives were just too different, and it wasn't worth sacrificing whatever you had for it, even though you thought of each other kindly. And at the end of the day, maybe over so many years, you realized that this person never would have been right for you anyway. And that's where I saw it come full circle with, if you had finally locked this in, it wasn't going to happen. Same with when you don't have any Saturn in the relationship. Like, you are always going to feel that pull if there's no Saturn. With the other great aspects, you're going to want this relationship to work. You're going to go running back for the physical aspects of it. You're going to know that there's just so many great things here. There could be almost all positive aspects. And without Saturn, it's just never going to happen. And you guys might be disappointed, and you both might really want it to. But with no Saturn, it's not going to happen. Like, it could be, you both could have the best intentions in the world. You could have like some great Jupiter aspect where, like a Jupiter trine Mars, where you two just love to be around each other and fill each other with enthusiasm. Because Jupiter trine Mars, now you got the soldier and like the general, and they're on the same page, and they're ready to conquer the world together, but when it's square, it's just bouncing off each other. Oh, I really like you, I like you too. Let's hang out. Okay, we'll hang out. When they make a plan, they come together. Oh, you know what, I think I want to go over here. Oh, I think I want to go over here. Boom, we're off each other. So anyways, the other thing that reminds me of the fourth one that I wanted to talk about, which is Venus and Mars. Now, this, I don't really know how this plays out so much for same-sex couples, except for if, there is someone who is more feminine, someone more masculine, or someone who likes to play more feminine, the more feminine, like, pursue me role, and the other likes to be the more masculine one in just general, like in their own personalities, then this would work. But I don't know exactly for everyone how it would play out there. But I can tell you that definitively, when you have a female and a male, and there's Venus and Mars, and they are, whether they're as a challenging aspect or positive one, see, a challenging one, if it's placed right, it could really be an intense passion that you're willing to fight for. But if it is flipped around, and even if it's positive, like a trine, and it is flipped around, and the woman is the Mars and the man is the Venus, it's pretty much never going to work. Like the man is always going to feel like this woman is either competing with him with other men, like as a man would, or that she is promiscuous, or she needs attention, even if she doesn't, like, even if she's a woman that really holds herself well, and she might not even just be perceived like this by him, but by the people around him in his presence. So it's just not really going to work very well. But when you have it the opposite, and it's the woman's Venus and the man's Mars, whether it's challenging or not, especially if it's a trine, it's not challenging, this is going to be a very cozy relationship, like a Venus conjunct Venus, where you two just feel very comfortable, physically comfortable in each other's company, and it will be a very noteworthy relationship, whether it lasts for some time because of the other aspects or it doesn't. It will be one that you don't forget the physicality of, and it will be like in your top like if you have your top relationship or two, it will be right up there. So regardless of whatever else ever happened in the relationship. And this brings me to the last one that I want to touch on, and it's not so much that it's a romance like the Jupiter Mars. It's a romance. If you are stuck on it after 2 months, or if you've been pining over this person for years, it's never going to work. If you finally lock them in, same with the no Saturn. If you finally no Saturn, you'll never lock them in. It'll always be a chase. But if it's the Mars square Pluto, or not Pluto, Mars square Jupiter, or even opposition, if you finally get each other like hunkered down, you're finally together again, it's just gonna keep doing that to you, and it's gonna be a shorter time frame every time. So if you're still pining over someone and you have this, I would try to see it as, would I really have been content with this person, or would I have started thinking about the next thing or where I want to go, and would this person really have been on board with that? And if you can think about it like that, you'll get over it pretty quickly, and you'll save yourself a lot of heartache, because I've seen different amounts of time be wasted on these. Okay, looks like we have a lot of people needing psychic help this morning, so my apologies for the break. But the last thing I wanted to cover is the Mars-Pluto conjunction, and this one you might not be wasting your time with so much. It's very binding, but it is very intense. So if you can avoid it, if you're in sort of a relationship that is intense and it's on and off in any way, and you aren't sure whether to proceed or not, I would say get out before you're stuck. Because while it is nice to have the security of this aspect, like a Mars conjunct Pluto, it is not an easy one to live with for the long term. And one of the videos I watched, the astrologer, she said that this means death in a natal chart, and the people that have this natally, their aspect, it could mean murder. So it actually statistically does, or something like that. So as someone who has lived through 2 intense Pluto conjunct Mars relationships, which I'm Pluto, which supposedly is the one who has more power, but it's more of a pervasive power. Some might say provocative power, and it's an intense bond, and it's hard to recover from, because once you leave one, you always look for another. So, and I did find this in a trine position, and it would have been really nice, except for it was one of those Mars square Jupiter relationships. So you would have had the intense physical passion of Mars and Pluto, but without the conjunction, which is basically like no boundaries. You're on top of each other, which is very secure. Like I said, you're like this, but it's also very suffocating, smothering, toxic. It's not necessarily the best. And then there's like another aspect in there that encourages laziness, so it's not very productive. And as an Aries, I like to be productive. But enough about me. The other one with Mars and Pluto, the conjunction, it can be manageable. The other astrologer had said it might need a lot of therapy. But it's almost like it's such an intense bond that it's like, if you don't know about it, like I didn't, it's just like, it does feel meant to be in a way, because you just can't get rid of each other, and you're willing to just go to war for each other. But now that I know about it, like if I ever come across it again, I will avoid it. But the other one that I had found with Mars and Pluto is Mars opposite Pluto, and that was the relationship that had no Saturn. But Mars opposite Pluto, it's like worse than Mars conjunct Pluto, because Mars conjunct Pluto, you're like this, and I don't feel this way about all opposites. I do think some opposites are very complementary, and I'm not just talking about sun to sun. And other like Venus opposite Venus, that can be tricky once you finally like live together. I guess it depends on the moon aspects. where you realize you don't really speak the same love language and you're telling them what you want, and they could still deliver it complimentary, but it could be a little uncomfortable where you're not like hearing each other. But opposition wise, I do feel like Mars, certain signs like Libra opposite Aries is not a bad one, and Venus or Pisces opposite Virgo. If I hadn't mentioned before, I work for five technically different psychic networks. I'm clairvoyant. I have been, I guess, since I started guessing people's signs when I started studying astrology. And I didn't only guess them, I knew them, like based off first impression, off something they would say. And then several times, and this was like 18 years ago, not to say how old I was or age myself, they would say, oh my gosh, yes, I am a Aries or a Scorpio. When's my birthday? And usually, I think majority of the time when people would say that to me, it must have been their intuition too, because I would just say a day, whatever came to my mind. It wouldn't even really come to my mind, I'd just say it. And it was right, and they would be blown away, and they'd say, oh my God, how did you know that? And then I'd say, I was blown away, so I'd say, oh, let me see your ID. And this happened several times. It's happened maybe once or twice where I guess the actual birthday in the last, 7 or 8 years, but I still do from time to time. Like, I won't really be thinking about astrology. I don't like self-fulfilling prophecy, so there's times where I try to walk away from astrology. And then I realized that when I guess their signs, it kind of pulls me back in. And this last time around, with watching like the other astrologers on YouTube, things really started to click. Like, I've always understood the sun and the moon and the rising, which is why I'm doing the big 144 videos. But in just probably the past couple of months, things have just really started to click for me with the houses and the aspects, and it's sort of like a cumulative thing, but it was sort of like all under the surface for me, and now it's just bam, 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 and because I understand the signs well, it all came together. So with that being said, Mars opposite Pluto is not a good opposition. I don't think it matters what the signs are, whether it's Libra and Aries or Pisces and Virgo. It's just going to be too magnified of two people kind of wanting different things, and it's going to be like sort of the same game that Mars and Pluto play in the conjunction, where it's like a little bit of a power struggle, but instead of it being like we want each other, we're going to fight for each other, we're going to be on top of each other, we're going to possess each other. Pluto's going to possess Mars, and Mars is going to, come for Pluto. It's not really like that. It's more of like you feel compelled to possess each other, but you're not really willing to fight for it. It's like, why should I fight for you? And it's almost like worse, because it becomes such a power struggle that not only am I not willing to fight for you, but I'm going to hide things from you that I really should be telling you. And then I'm going to make like it's none of your business. And then when I feel like pulling you in, or with Mars, I guess it'd be when I feel like seeking you out, because I feel your Pluto energy and I need to acknowledge it, I'm coming for war. So, that astrologer, or I think one other had said, like, Mars conjunct Pluto is, I look in your eyes and I'm ready for war, but I would say it's more Mars opposition Pluto, where it's like, I'm here to destroy you, and I don't care about you. And that for me was Mars, but I was Pluto once again. So for me, it was more like, why am I fighting for someone who's trying to destroy me, and why are you trying to destroy me? And she had said with the conjunction that there could be like occult black magic, and that is a big part of where my spiritual journey began too, is this person was doing magic spells on me, and maybe I'll like drop more tidbits of that throughout my other videos. I don't want to, this video isn't about that, so I don't want to get into it, but I will say that if you're having an intense on and off again relationship, or someone's sort of playing games with you, and you have this Mars trine Pluto could be a great one. Like that could be very that could be a very fun one. Unfortunately for me, I didn't get to find out because I had Mercury Square Sun there, so he just wanted to talk shit about me all the time, and I had the Mars Square Jupiter. But also I haven't just seen it with him, and I've seen it with others and other clients and relationships that I've observed. So today I actually came to warn you about Mars Square Jupiter, that if you are seeing someone and you're not sure where it's going, or you just had a falling out and you had hit it off really well for about 2 months, and you look in that, you type in your birthdays down there and you see Mars Square Jupiter, just know that you never would have been happy. And even if they had chosen to end the relationship, you wouldn't have been happy. And there could have been all other positive aspects, or all other binding aspects, or the best potential in the world for this relationship. But if you had that, it just never was going to work. And it's funny how it's written in cafe astrology, that it's just a paragraph, so a lot of that it's just written like you just both kind of want to be in separate places. So it almost just seems like, oh well, you'll just be daydreaming while you're on the couch. But it's much more complex than that. It is literally, you both will never want to be in the same place at the same time, which means the relationship will never cement, no matter what else is going on in the chart. So if you have that, you probably haven't had an on and off relationship. You probably had like a disappointing romance. Or if you're in a romance now and you want to know if there's a future and you see that, just know that when it falls apart in a month, just remember what I said so you're not too heartbroken. And that's what I came to deliver to you today, was like the top 4 or 5 aspects. So we'll just review really quickly, and they were, if there's no Saturn between you two, also no moon, but the moon is actually with the birth times, and that's unrequited love, some say. But to recap, no Saturn, you're going to keep trying and nothing's ever going to happen. You could spend years on this person, and they'll be the kind of person that's like, oh, well, we're not dating, well, we're not in a relationship, but yet you're always there for them, or vice versa. Or maybe you don't know why you don't want to be in a relationship with them. Well, there's no Saturn, so you should both just give up now and save yourself a lot of time and heartache and wondering. You could be soulmates, and if there's no Saturn, it's just not happening in this lifetime. If the Venus and the Mars are mismatched, especially if it's a hard aspect, challenging aspect like a square or conjunction or an opposition, but even with the trine, it could be a little tricky. But so I wouldn't say it's a positive if it's correctly placed, the Mars and the Venus with the male and the female, unless a trine would only really matter if the Mars is with the male and the Venus is with the female. Then you're really going to feel that lucky trine. And if it's square and the Venus is with the female and the Mars is with the male, it's going to be a passion aspect that you two are willing to work through. So if the Venus is in the man's place and it's aspecting the woman's Mars, it's just not going to really work out that well. It's going to be a bunch of drama, and the people around you are probably going to think you're both nutty, or really dislike, like his friends aren't going to like her, or vice versa. Well, with the male being Venus, it will more be like he's like passive and playing hard to get, and it's almost like catty and ridiculous. So maybe her friends won't notice as much, but the male's friends are going to be like, she's kind of a tramp, I don't know. And the Mars square Jupiter. And then too, if you have the Mars and Pluto thing going on, I mean, you could go and look at the other astrologers' videos about Mars and Pluto, because there's a ton there. But there isn't really much on Mars and Jupiter. And Mars square Jupiter, you're wasting your time. So if you've been dating for a month and you're trying to see where it goes, just know it's only going to last another month, and enjoy the ride, because don't start planning your wedding, and don't get married, because this might actually be one of those type of things where people meet after 2 months and then they get married, like, because they're so in love, and then it falls apart within 2 days in divorce court. That would be Mars square Jupiter. They're married now, so now what? Oh, well, they don't want to be in the same, they don't even want to have the same honeymoon, you know? So that would be that. But don't ever underestimate a shotgun wedding. Or, you know, in the old days, people got married after 2 weeks. If two people are ready for marriage and they meet and they feel it with each other, then I'm a hopeless romantic. I've got Pisces penis. Venus in Pisces, so I'm a hopeless romantic that way, but exalted in Pisces. So I'm not saying no shotgun wedding would work, and if two people are committed and looking for marriage, I think it could very well work better than, I think in sociology, not to go on another tangent here, I'll wrap it up, but I think in sociology they said that people that get married, like within, I think, the first year or after 5 years, or maybe it's within the first 2 years, and after 5 years have the best statistics of not getting divorced. If you get married between like two years, and it's either like 5 or 7, so it's like, right, you know, you'd think the people that have the drag out the relationship forever, that they would have worse odds where he wasn't proposing, but I can't remember the end part. There's another something going on there, but I know in the beginning it's like people that get married within the first year, it could be 2, but I know it's the first year for sure, they are more likely to stay married, because when they met, they're both ready to get married, they're committed to the idea of marriage, and they meet each other and they feel like it's right. So I'm not discouraging that, but I'm saying if you have Mars square Jupiter, it's probably not a good idea. So, you know, if you meet someone next month and you feel like they're the one, and you have all these great aspects, and you just see this one where you might kind of daydream about being other places, no. Don't do it, because your marriage is going to fall apart very quickly, and you're going to have to do a lot of paperwork, and it's going to be really annoying. So I look forward to the other astrologists doing Mars square Jupiter videos, but you know, there are so many aspects to cover that I think they just haven't gotten there yet. So if you like my video, I'll be doing more. I'll be trying to do the aspects that I can't find as much, or that I find these kind of trends on, and follow the big 144, and look out for your birth sign and your moon and your rising sign, and that's all. And if you ever want to talk to me and get a reading from me, go to rotation411.com, and the link is in the description. Also, you're more than welcome to have your full birth chart done with me. I can tell you a lot of things about your life that you didn't know, or that you needed confirmed, or anything like that. I know having mine done really changed my life, so I had it done by another astrologer. All right, so thank you. I'm Madeline Marie, and I look forward to making more videos and seeing your comments and answering your questions. And yeah, come visit me over at rotation411.com. Goodbye.